So one of the things that I love about Betfair trading, particularly on horse racing, is the range of opportunities. You can trade it manually, automatically, semi-automatically. You could be waiting for a very specific opportunity in the market and then you're just going to jump on that opportunity when it occurs. Or maybe you have a more generic strategy that's at play. But at the core of trading is your ability to match a strategy to what you see within the market. And in racing, there are a whole load of strategies that you can deploy. I've even shown you strategies that involve if it's going to rain or not. But basically, there are a very vast range of strategies. And when you first start out trading, you'll be looking for that golden bullet, you know, the one thing that works fantastically well. But the fact is there are a whole range of them that work particularly well. Some work well on some markets, some don't on others. And some opportunities are transitory. They only occur with irregular frequency. But as your skill level builds as a trader, you will find that you begin to learn how to do all of these strategies. You begin to deploy them, and then you will find these opportunities as they occur. So a great opportunity occurred this week at Killarney Racecourse, and it was an unusual one. But in order to explain it, I want you to have a look at this race card and tell me what you see on this race card. Now, the race card itself is pretty boring. You can gather bits of information from it. But I'm particularly focusing on one aspect of this. And the aspect that I'm focusing on is explained by what actually happened on this particular day. Now, what I'm looking at on the race card are the jockey silks. And the reason that I'm looking at that is probably not the reason that you suspect, because I have talked about jockey trainer gambles in the past, where a winning combination of jockeys or trainers over a number of races can provoke a bit of activity in a later market. But on this occasion, what happened on this particular day was that the owner of some horses arrived at Killarney Racecourse. His helicopter landed on the racecourse, and immediately that got the attention of the media, who focused on the fact that the owner had turned up to watch some of his horses race. Now, in case you don't know who this person is, this is J.P. McManus, a very wealthy man, owns lots of race horses, and his silk colours are very well known, so much so you can actually buy merchandise around those particular colours. But basically, his arrival at the racecourse got a little bit of interest going within the market, because after all, why would you fly all the way to a racecourse just to watch a couple of horses? So immediately he landed, attention started to turn to which horses are likely to perform in some of the races at Killarney. And the problem you have as a bettor is it's very difficult to know, if you're betting on horse race, which, you know, where should you be putting your money? But as a trader, that's really not a major issue, because all you need to do is sit and watch the market. You identify the J.P. McManus horses, and then if you start to see a bit of activity on those, then it's probably going to set off a gamble. Why would it set off a gamble on this particular occasion? Well, if you think about it, he's flown in to have a look at his horses. He probably thinks some of them have got a good chance, or he wants to look at a rising star within the ranks, or that's the narrative that you see within the market. And therefore, if there's a bit of money for a horse, then people will begin to think that maybe there is something in it, maybe there's something in him flying over to watch this particular runner, and that perhaps, you know, they are onto something. And then, of course, you get this cascading effect, the FOMO factor, the fear of missing out, that we have discussed in other videos, which then begins to send the market into a bit of a fervour. And that's exactly what happened at Killarney. And we actually saw one of his horses. There were two horses in this particular race, but one of them started to receive a bit of backing support, and the backing support came and it amplified and got bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. So rather bizarrely, the great thing about this trade is we actually had a clue as to what was about to happen. We didn't know specifically the horse, but using a bit of our trading skills, we could actually identify that there was something going on, and in particular on which horse. And that was all set off by the owner landing on the racecourse on a helicopter. And you're sort of thinking, well, how often does that happen? Quite frequently, actually, but it doesn't necessarily need to be the owner of the horses themselves. We had at Chepstow, not so long ago, we had a horse that was being ridden by a jockey, which is not unusual, you have to say. But the fact that it was his only ride and he'd flown in by helicopter gathered a fair amount of interest. So we had exactly the same scenario occurring again, but for a slightly different reason. It wasn't the owner that turned up on this occasion. It was actually the jockey. The jockey had flown in just for one ride on this one horse in this one race at Chepstow, and as soon as he landed and the press coverage started to build around this particular scenario, then of course exactly the same thing happened. People started to back the horse, and then the price came in, and because the price came in, people started to back it thinking there was something behind it, and because they backed it, the price came in a bit more, and the whole thing cascaded onward from there. So it's an unusual situation. You know, this isn't something that you're going to see every day, but nonetheless, just keeping your eye on what's going on the racing, understanding what's going on the course, if people have booked single rides, if a helicopter arrives somewhere and it's, you know, a jockey, there's a narrative that flows here. And of course, every helicopter that lands at every racecourse, this isn't going to happen. But as a trader, you can pick up on the fact that something interesting is happening. You can watch those particular selections within the market. You can mark them, identify that there is a potential opportunity. And then if you see activity within the market, then you pretty much know what's going to happen next. If people cotton on to that narrative and the money starts to come from it, as a trader, you can back it at a higher price, later a lower price, and trade out regardless of whatever happens. And the interesting thing about both these examples that I give you is that Killarney, the favoured horse, finished second. It put in a good run, but ultimately it didn't win. And when we look at this selection at Chepstow, the horse actually ran absolutely terribly and finished last. It was put out about a week later at Lingfield and finished last again. So I think that may see that that horse probably is not going to be favoured in the future. But just by keeping your eyes out, looking at the TV screen, seeing what sort of narrative is being constructed by the media, and by seeing what activity is within the betting market itself, then there's absolutely no reason why you couldn't profit from the same situation when it occurs in the future. When is it going to occur in the future? Don't know, but I guarantee you that it will. And if you're alert and aware of it, then I'm sure you can profit from it too.